Good afternoon. This is the June 21 meeting of the Police Station Building Committee. Welcome all to Town Hall. It's been a long time coming, but it's nice to see everybody in person and in 3 dimensions. I'm happy to be rid of my iPad as we go forward. So, we have an agenda. We have a quorum, and this meeting is called to order. First thing on the agenda is we have 2 invoices from Tecton Architects, one for $21,025, the second for $387,547. Neil, you have an explanation on
I
those?
just want to clarify, the sorry, Pat, the $21,000 invoice
Yep.
is for the balance of their services performed under the agreement for the study phase of this project. And the balance larger invoice is for design phase services as we are currently working.
Very good. So that comes out of a separate budget?
They just
then,
come out of 2 separate
21,000.
accounts.
Yep,
That's why
very
they're
good.
separated, yes.
Okay. Any questions?
Motion?
We do.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the 2 invoices totaling $408,572. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have reports. First, we have the owner's project manager. Neil, back to you.
Yep, so just 2 items from our side of the table tonight. The first is, we did provide you with a budget update that's representative of invoices paid through today, so the invoices you just voted are included in this. And the second item, I'm sorry, take any questions anyone has on the budget, it's just that single entry change from the last meeting. And then this evening, we are presenting to the committee our results of our pre-qualification committee, or pre-qualification process, excuse me, for the subcontractors. If you'll recall, I want to say it was back in April timeframe, we solicited for subcontractor interest on this project. We received 118 qualification packages from subcontractors from various trades for their participation in the project. The pre-qualification process is very much regulated by DCAM. There's a sort of a set procedure and a set application that you follow, and the information is rather standardized. For your clarification, it evaluates contractors based on their management, with 50 points allowable to each subcontractor for their management qualifications, and they must score a minimum of 25 points in that category. They're also evaluated on their references from their previous experiences, 30 points for references with 15-point minimum requirements, as well as their capacity, which is 20 points with a 10-point minimum. And that's an evaluation of their revenue streams, both current and future. In addition to that, there are mandatory or statutory requirements in terms of their bonding capacity, their current DCAM certificate and eligibility, as well as their update statement. So as a group, myself, Matt, Fontaine, as well as the town, evaluated, we divided and conquered, if you will, divided among those 118 proposals, and 106 contractors were pre-qualified for their involvement or their opportunity to bid this project. They are outlined in the memo that I provided by trade. So if there are any questions, I will certainly take them regarding process. The scores and the evaluation of the contractors are intended to remain confidential, as they're based on information that's in their update statement, which is not a public document, but I'll be happy to entertain any questions the committee has, if there's any information or supplemental information needed on any particular contract.
Questions? Nothing?
So the only action that we would ask of the committee is that you authorize us to proceed with our recommendation, and we will notify the contractors that have been shortlisted and those that have not.
And Neil, I have one clarifying
Sure.
question. Are you required to accept the lowest bid since these have all been pre-qualified? How does that work?
It is very difficult to bypass the low bidder.
Okay,
However, if we can prove that there is a substantive change in their status between now and when they bid the job in a month or a month and a half, we can certainly question their bid at that point in time.
okay, all right.
As well as if the information provided in their bid is not complete.
Right.
All right.
They must still be responsible and responsive to the bid proposal.
Okay. So we're looking for just approval for you to move forward then
Yes.
with the subcontractors. Any other questions around this? Sure. Well,
So, these are the people who qualified,
There's two columns, Mo.
who didn't.
Didn't,
Right.
correct.
But you, I'm a little disheveled from
Yeah.
coming in late. You didn't, we haven't seen who you've who is the low bid? How is this?
No. So the way that this will work is the contractors that have been qualified or pre-qualified, they will receive an invitation from us to solicit, to receive and submit bids.
Oh, okay.
For
All
the
right.
individual sub-trades.
So
That
this is
process.
qualifying them then?
This is just qualifying them to say who gets to bid and who doesn't.
Okay.
And then from that field of 106, there'll roughly be, 16, comes to memory, 16 different categories of work, and we'll choose the lowest eligible bid from each of those sub-trade categories.
This vote. Yep. Vote.
Yep, sure.
So how long will that process take?
We are expecting that the documents were going to go public. That's the later part of the presentation. We're expecting them to go public towards the end of July. And normally, it's a 3 to 4 week process
Okay.
to weed out, evaluate, and receive the bids.
But can you remind me, is the steel,
Structural steel is not a pre-qualified.
no, is that already in the works?
Structural steel? No,
No?
Not yet.
Or what is it,
we
site?
did
and-
steel deck.
Okay, but site work is?
Site work is not a pre-qualified.
Right. But are you already going ahead?
We've received proposals. I think we're going to
Right,
get to
so,
that as
okay.
well.
All right, I'm
But
jumping ahead.
That's
Okay.
not part of what we're doing here tonight.
Okay, this is the bids, the other ones you can choose.
These are the sub-trades that are
Right.
required by statute.
Yep.
The other ones are open trades that are
Okay.
under the discretion of the CM.
Okay.
Good question, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
So, it looks like you have the minimum requirements for everything except for elevators.
Except for elevators.
So just,
You're
can you
correct.
just explain to the committee how that's gonna work as far as
So we have,
soliciting?
yeah, we have two, based on our original conversation, which I think was at a prior committee meeting, we did re-advertise and re-solicit for additional elevator sub-trade qualification packages and received none. So currently, right now, we have one elevator trade that's been pre-approved.
Yeah.
So we have the opportunity, or we have the choice, that we can bid it with one bidder, or we can open the elevator bid to non-pre-qualified elevator contractors under the same scrutiny that we would have if it was a traditional 149 job that did not require pre-qualification. So we have that choice. And then depending on what happens there, if we don't get the bids that we're expecting, then we can defer to the CM to provide it as an open bid and hold it as an allowance in the contract until such time as a contractor's been selected.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Sure.
Have we used this company for elevators in the
Yes.
past? Okay.
Yes. They're currently doing the Beal project, I believe.
So I guess my concern with that is if we're just going with one bidder and they submit a bid, they could pretty much bid whatever they wanted. Do we have an opportunity, if the bid is unreasonable, would we have an opportunity to reject that?
I would actually recommend, and I think we'll get to that at a later date, but I think we would suggest that it should be opened and eligible to any DCAM certified elevator contractor within the state. And that way we can encourage competition among the trade.
Okay. We like competition.
You like that?
Anything else? Okay, so I think at this point, we just need a motion to approve structure monitoring services, Fontaine and Tecton Architects to move forward with the subcontract approval process. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Unanimous. Thanks, Neil. Do you have more, Neil?
I do not.
Okay, very good. That brings us to report from the architect. Pat, you are up.
Good evening. I'd point out that we haven't been in person ever for this, so Brianna and Jeff have come up as well.
Oh,
So
excellent. Welcome.
I think this is the first time we've all been in the room together
I think so.
since the project started almost 2 years ago. So this is fun stuff. So because of that, we felt like it'd be a good opportunity to recap a few things since the project is almost ready to hit the streets for the sub-trades. And some of you have seen some of this stuff in person, but not all of you. And we wanted to go back through a number of things, especially because of some of the questions raised at the last committee meeting. And we'll get to all these along the way. But first, I wanted to give you an update on the status of the construction documents, since that's tied to the bids. Our 90% construction document package was issued on June 16th, which was last Wednesday, and that went out to Fontaine, the CM, as well as the town, members of the town, including the building department, and our estimator as well. So it is being independently estimated on our end as well as Fontaine. And we're expecting those estimates back on July 7th. Takes about 3 weeks to do that work, especially with a package as heavy as the one that we have for this project. Once those are received, we'll spend a couple of days going through them and making sure that everything is clean and clear. And then we'll be getting together between Tecton, CMS, Fontaine, and our estimator and reconciling those two different estimates to make sure that we're all looking at apples to apples, and it's as accurate as it can be based on the current market conditions and that snapshot in time in which the estimate was conducted. Should all of that start to align with the project budget and everything is still on track, we would be looking to issue bid documents for those sub-trades that were just outlined in that pre-qualification on July 21st. And as Neil had pointed out, it takes 3 to 4 weeks to receive those bids back. We schedule for 3 weeks, and there's always a couple of questions in there that we may need to push the receipt date back of bids a couple of days. So we like to give ourselves 3 to 4 weeks in there, just in case something does pop up. I think also with that 90% construction document package, that's also out with the folks looking at the site work as well as steel and concrete. So anybody that's been hearing about what's going on in construction, steel and concrete, or prices are going up, so the quicker we can get those in hand, the better for the project. Any questions on the status of the documents today? It's a pretty big set. It's about 240 drawings, so it's a pretty thick set of documents. I should also mention, sorry to go back and forth, we're also doing an internal peer review on the project right now. So not Jeff, but another principal at our firm is independently going through that entire set of documents, all the trades, all of our consultant documents, making sure everything's well coordinated and detailed. And that's actually live through some software that's linked to Fontaine Brothers, as well as all of my consultants, so we can see everything in real time as it's coming up. So if there is a question that one of my consultants need to answer, or one of Ryan's folks sees something that they have a question on in real time, the entire team can coordinate and collaborate on that to make sure we're buttoning up all those documents and crossing our T's and dotting our I's. So a really nice collaborative package in the works right now. One update on permitting. Last week, we had Concom and the planning board hearing back-to-back, a nice little doubleheader last Thursday. Both hearings were closed. And we've received the approval letter from the planning board. And so we're just waiting on the final order conditions for Conservation Commission. And then those will also roll into our documents and be part of our bid packages. So Last meeting, we had a conversation on bullet-resistant glazing at some of the lower windows. It was brought up when we had shown a interior rendering from the fitness room and the sort of the visibility out of that room. And so we have some options to consider in terms of how to treat the openings in the building. But we wanted to take you through a little bit of the design history of the exterior of the building, just because some of these conversations have come up over the past 7 or 8 months. And we've gone through a lot of design iterations and changes, and some of them were a result of this conversation and others. So I just wanted to quickly go through these different iterations of the exterior design to bring us all up to speed, especially because we have 2 newer committee members that may not have been along the whole ride with us, so. So this is where we started. I know we've come a long way from this. At some point on my computer screen, I looked at that and said, that looks like a great idea. But it's an iterative process, so. This is what the building looked like in June of last year, so a little over a year ago, when the committee was just formed. It instantly was picked up on that the windows were low across the entire building, and that there was visibility and safety concerns with that design, among other issues. So we came back and said, all right, let's raise a lot of the windows up. But we had discussed at one point that it still made sense in a couple of areas to keep some of the windows down a little bit lower, where there would be more visibility and there was less risk because of them not being officer-occupied spaces. So the clerk's office on the left, and the training room, and then some of the public meeting spaces in the front. And actually, at this point in the design, I believe those were just part of the lobby. I don't think those were interview rooms yet. But so we had raised a lot of the other all of the other windows throughout the building up, and we brought up a stone base. And it had a really heavy feel. There was, I think we had some feedback that it felt heavy, that it was starting to feel a little fortress-like. We also had this ugly entry canopy that I thought looked kind of neat, but nobody liked it, so we got rid of that. So in July, we came back with another option and said, well, you know, we can bring some of the windows down, we can keep it open, and we're gonna bring in some planter beds and things like that to help protect the front of the building, bring the scale down, and then this is where we started to relate the central mass of the building and tie it back to town hall with this hipped roof. We had that the fenced area instead of what now has become the cupola. And we still had that stone base, and it was heavy, it grounded the building, but we think it started, you know, this language started to tie a lot of the architecture together. And by having the planter in the front with some trees and things like that, it started to screen some of those windows and became more of a passive protection to the people that were in the building. And then this is what we took to town meeting, which is a variation of that same thing. It's basically the same design, just a little bit snazzier of an image. Again, the low windows at the clerks in the training room at the very front of the building, and then everywhere else, we had raised the windows up, and we brought this heavier stone base up to match it as this sort of ground line that came through the rest of the building. And then the question came up once again about the low windows, and we wanted to talk about safety and security, and the question was asked, well, what about some other police stations around the area? What are other departments doing? And so we brought in a few examples that we had done. Some fairly local, some a little bit further away, but Lexington, Westport, Sutton, and Wilbraham, Massachusetts, all recently done by this team, in fact, except for Lexington, but Neil was the OPM on the other 3 as well. It just a little bit of a sense of what other departments are doing, and we have low windows on all these in all of the occupied spaces, and yet sometimes we do ballistic rated glazing in some of these. Of the departments we've done in the past 6 or 7 years, we had done 2 that had ballistic rated windows, and that one on the bottom right, Wilbraham, was one of them. And it's actually not all the windows. It's just these 2. That's the dispatch area. The rest of it, we went with actual fiberglass framed, double glazed windows like you would have in a lot of public buildings. Lexington, the same thing. That's a pretty similar sized community and department to this one. And you can see that there was a real want to have the building open and connected to the community. So those low and open windows was something that was real important to them. And the same thing with Westport and Sutton. That was really playing to the small, more rural community aesthetic in New England. But again, we didn't have any ballistic ratings to any of those either. But we do it sometimes, but these are just some examples of some similar communities where we didn't do it except for those two in Wilbraham.
Mr. Chair, can I have a question?
certainly, yeah.
Matt, has Lexington had an issue? Didn't they have an issue where someone did shoot at the station?
They have had, because there is, along the back here, there's a rail trail.
Yeah, the existing station. This one has not been built yet.
Right. So, yeah, somebody has, in the past, taken a shot at the building from that rail trail in the back. What we did do to deal with that issue is we kept a lot of the utility spaces towards the back there. So there's not a lot of exposure back there. They don't have enough room in the back though, because there's sort of a public drive that goes back there to connect some of the other municipal buildings, because that's part of their town hall campus. There isn't room to sort of fence that and segregate that off, so it's sort of always accessible by the public.
Matt, are any of the elevations in Lexington protected by historical significance as well? Or are those all,
No.
okay, all right.
No, originally we were preserving part of the existing building, and that's no longer the case, so now it's
Okay.
all new.
Thank you.
Matt, what type of windows are they putting in their new building? Do they know yet?
Similar to what we're showing for this one now.
With the one exception, to the far left of that image, the lower level, that is the dispatch center. We intended to do ballistic windows at that location.
Okay.
Following through on the standard, it's not law in Massachusetts, but the standard of NFPA 1221, which is the protection and continuous operation of emergency communication centers.
So much like we did in Wilbraham, where the ballistic rating was at the exterior windows into dispatch, we are doing the same in Lexington. We don't have that issue here because it's internal space to the rest of the building.
And that's for national accreditation standards?
That's NFPA, that's the National Fire Protection Association. They create a lot of standards for building design. Accreditation does not speak directly to ballistic resistance, although they do also include requirements for maintenance of emergency communications facilities. It's nowhere near the NFPA standard, though.
Okay.
The NFPA standard has been getting tougher and tougher every few years. When I started, we would do level 3 glass in there. Now it's level 4 glass. It's protection against falling adjacent structures. It's 2-hour fire protection. It's segregated air systems. So there's a lot that goes into that.
So from there, after that conversation, we came back, and this is essentially where we landed. This was in February, much as it looks now, with some minor changes. This was the back when we had discussed the lowering of the roll call windows here. We had never really shown the elevation of that space up until now, but you can see where all the other windows are raised up through the rest of the building into all the officers' office spaces. For comparison, this is the head of a door, so the bottom of the window is, somewhere in this range. And that's where we are today. So, since we are talking about bullet-resistant glazing, I do have lots of options, because there's a lot of ways we can go with this. So I have some sort of images that show the different options. There's 6 main types of options we can go with. The first 4 will leave the building looking pretty much exactly the way that it is now, but they have implications on cost depending on the way we go. So again, just as a reminder of the fitness room back there to the bottom right. And so options 1 through 4 have to do with the glass itself. So the first one being no change, we don't do anything, we leave it as is. Nice thermally broken insulated glazing system, so operability to the windows, so you can get some natural ventilation in each of the occupied spaces. Option 2, if we're talking about just visibility, there was some discussion about visibility versus ballistic rating of the glass. So one would be just to film some of the lower glass so that you wouldn't be able to see in it. The disadvantage there would, one, it would change a little bit of the look of the building depending on the type of film we go with. The top lights wouldn't match the bottom lights. You wouldn't also be able to see out. And so it's always good to be able to see out of a police station, to have that sort of eyes on the street mentality. If somebody is coming to do harm to the building, you kind of want to be able to see them, not necessarily just from the camera system, although there'll be the robust camera system. Option number 3 is replacing just those lower windows, so just the lower lights. Here at fitness, roll call, the public interview rooms, training room, and the clerk's office. It's about 330 square feet of window to do that, to do those areas, and we can replace those with ballistic rated glass. It'll be one level lower than what you have in the lobby. What Jeff was talking about with NFPA 1221, that's the level 4 glass that you have in the lobby space to separate the dispatch center. This would be a level 3, it'd be one level below that, which is still a very robust ballistic rated glass. It'll take a few shots from a 44 caliber handgun. And it costs about, on the low range, about $180 a square foot, and that would be, on the low range, about $60,000 add to the project. In the high range, probably $150,000. It's sort of hard to pinpoint this. Talking to one of my reps, the numbers are sort of fluid with the market conditions right now, and he couldn't really put a solid pin on the cost of this, especially thinking that this is going to be 6 or so months out when they buy this.
You'll just, again, the head height compared to that lower sash, that gets that ballistic protection up about this high.
That was gonna be my question. How high exactly does that bring it?
Yeah, so that would bring it. So again, if you're looking at a door coming across, this mullion line, which is of course hard to see from all the way across the room, is about halfway up this. So you're about 8 feet. So the ballistic glass would be about up here.
Okay.
So Matt, is the 330 square feet only that glass right there?
Nope, there, the clerk's office, training room,
Around the,
roll call.
does that go around the front?
Yeah, so it would be, these lower lights here, here, here. Just the lower portions of it. So,
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, Donna, go ahead.
So when you say about 8 feet, is it 8 feet from the floor
it would,
where the person would be standing? Is it 8 feet from the
from
floor?
the floor, yeah, I'm talking about from the floor.
So it is 8 feet, not about 8 feet?
I don't have the exact measurement right here, but it is about a foot over the head of a door, so that's about 8 feet. From this image, I won't be able to.
It's almost like that door over there?
Right, it'd be like the top of that door, top of the transom. Option 4. So this would be replacing all the windows in the building, all the main exterior windows. There's about 1,850 square feet of glass. And using that same approximate low range of $180 a square foot, it'd be in the range of $330,000 to $600,000 to increase the ballistic rating to a level 3 for all the windows. Now, option 4B is replacing the windows with a ballistic rated glass system. So what I've been describing is replacing the glass, just this, just the glass. You'd still have your typical curtain wall frame. So you'd have what you would normally put the glass into. So ballistic rated glass, not a ballistic rated frame. So there's the potential that the glass could fail within, the frame could fail if shot at, because it's not a rated system. It's like putting a fire door in a non-fire rated wall, or vice versa. The non-rated portion isn't tested, so it could fail. So in order to put a whole rated system in, we have to change out the frame. It's much heavier than that is. And much more expensive. And it would be somewhere between $1 to $1.5 million of an upgrade to do that. So we also have some other options to consider.
Matt, that's the same 1,800 square feet.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, Donna, go ahead.
I don't know, I don't want to interrupt if you're still talking windows, but, so you showed us the 4 that you've done in the state, the 4 buildings, right?
An example of 4 buildings. yeah.
Example of 4 buildings. If you were to look nationally, are there police stations that take these types of issues further?
There are certain departments, I think Jeff can answer this, he does police stations nationally.
Yeah, it's, the number of police departments that I've worked on, and I've done over 100, over 30-something years, that actually have full ballistic glass throughout the entire building are very rare. There are quite a number that I've done where you identify certain particularly vulnerable areas. We have one small station that we did a few years ago where it's very close to a busy roadway. And so all of the road-facing glass is protected at a level 2 ballistic rating, so that if somebody's, cruising by and taking random shots, you've got a level of protection. We've done a number where they protect key areas. For instance, if you've got a lot of glazing near a roll call room, that's, especially if it's public-facing, that's a good place to think about doing ballistic glazing. Now, I have done down in Norfolk, Virginia. I did the 4th Precinct facility there. It's about a 40,000 square foot police precinct facility. It does not have ballistic glazing. However, it does utilize predominantly higher window sills. It's a different kind of architecture. It's a much more modern looking building. But in that case, pretty much every window except the lobby and the training room are very high sills. The lobby and the training room there was designed for use by the community predominantly, and so it doesn't get that ballistic treatment there.
So I keep thinking about, are we overreacting or are we being practical in the long run? So we didn't think September 11th would ever happen in our wildest imaginations. And I could say, I never imagined that a car would drive into a police station in Leicester. So things are happening that we never imagined because we have rational minds and we don't think that way. So I think we have to be forward-thinking, and the world is getting more violent and other things. But, so, given that, and looking at the expenses, I'm trying to understand why it's so important to have the gym windows so low. Why is it not okay in the back of the building to just raise the windows higher? Because it's not, those windows don't serve a purpose for the public to see to make them want to come into the gym and work out. So there's no marketing reason to have those windows. Where if you raise them, they still have the natural light. They still have that and they have the protection, and you don't have to spend the money on those particular windows to make them ballistic.
Yep, no, that's all valid. It's also, to the other side, you would have less views out of the gym, out into the environment. But the idea that it's really up to the committee and what they want to do with that. But, I mean, you're behind a secured fence and all that as well.
Well,
Matt, if I may,
it was
I
kind of
think-
my thought too. If you just kind of cut the windows in half and did the upper portion,
So
those could still be operable windows, correct?
Yeah,
So we would not lose lead points for having windows like that then?
if you just did them here?
If you
Yeah.
just did half windows, the upper half, so that the natural light come in, but they could be operable.
So I guess let me continue then.
I'm sorry?
I said, I guess, let me continue then, because I have
Okay.
those options.
All right.
Matt, before you
Okay,
continue,
so we have more options.
I just wanted to say, you're not being overreactive. This is a smart discussion to have. It's a good discussion to have. It's important to think forward. I mean, when I started doing police stations and we used to put all the ballistic protection in the lobby, I can't tell you how many communities said, what are you doing all that for?
Right,
And
exactly.
we've seen too many incidents where people come into a police station with weapons, so it's justified. When we started doing all the self-harm resistant measures in cells,
Yeah.
a lot of people said, what are you doing that for? There's no standard that says you have to do that. We do it, and I'm glad we do it, because we're preserving life and we're making the police officer's job easier and safer. So these are, you're not overreacting.
That's not a standard in police stations yet?
Massachusetts has some of the most robust holding cell standards in the country. I've worked in a lot of different states. We have done a lot of research. We actually exceed Massachusetts requirements because we're looking to reduce the potential for self-harm. It's better for everybody if it's the liability of the community is protected that way.
The only reason I ask that is because in hospitals, we're required to do it, so I can't, so just as soon as the building goes up, they're going to change the standard, is my guess.
Yeah, we're actually, we internally look to improve on that above and beyond what the code is. We use whatever the highest standard is throughout the country where it is. Like Jeff said, it happens to be pretty much Massachusetts, and then we take that and we do work in other states and do that.
Thank you.
So other options. So this is if we were to raise the windows up. So replacing that bottom light and having it just high windows and replacing it with the metal panel. That way it stays all within the same.
Matt, what's the stopping power of the section where the metal panel is?
So the metal panel's not ballistic rated, but we can ballistic rate the assembly, and we have that as an option. So what we would have to do is, if you raise the panel up, it keeps the aesthetic, right, of that window sort of system, that glazing system. And then behind that, we would use the same ballistic rated metal wall panel, liner panel that we have in the interior walls, but from the lobby to other spaces. That's how
Oh, so
we.
that it'll have ballistic protection, it just won't be the outside panel?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
And then, again, that's what it would look like in the fitness room, which is, I believe, what you were describing. So if we changed just the insulated metal panel and it was just a matter of vision, right? Because you're gonna shoot at a target, if you're shooting at a wall is another thing. So this would be raising that metal panel up. If we were to add ballistic ratings behind that, there would be a modest add in cost to do those. There's additional, like edge metal framing work, drywall work. You'd have to buy the ballistic liner panels, which are not inexpensive, but it would be in the $20,000 to $50,000 range to do this. And then the last option would be if we were to infill this area with brick. Brick is ballistic resistant in its material makeup, so we wouldn't have to add anything behind the wall to do that.
It has an intrinsic ballistic resistance because of its density. There isn't an official UL ballistics test on brick, but it's 3,500 pounds per square inch. It's got good density. That means good mass to resist a projectile. So.
And there's sort of a minimal cost would be exchanging one thing for another with the windows and the brick. One thing I wanted to point out, if we went to a ballistic rated system, I just want to show you what it looks like. So this is a ballistic rated entry system. So what you get is sort of what you see. It's sort of that utilitarian storefront look, and it acts as storefront. There's a difference between storefront and curtain wall in its performance and the longevity of that system. So it's not as robust with the way that it drains and weeps out water. And then with its detailing and finish options, it comes in two colors. This, which is that silver, that unfinished silver look, they call it clear, and bronze, and that's pretty much all you get. We're proposing for everything to be bone white, which matches sort of the trim around the campus, which is this color. That would be a custom color to do it with this, which would increase lead time and increase costs. Also, that's it for the frame. That's what it looks like. It's just that one rectangular profile like that. To match, to give the sort of that historic sort of New England look to it, what we have proposed at the station in the renderings is a more robust trim profile that we would have to make up differently if we were to do it. So it would require us basically redesigning a lot of the facade to make this work. Also, this thermal performance, so this is a section through it. So just so you get an idea of how these things are put together, so it's a much heavier frame system, and it's basically a solid piece of aluminum. They call this thermally broken. This is the pressure cap. This is just the little piece that covers it up to finish it. So it's not really thermally broken. Whereas an actual curtain wall frame has a number of different pieces where it's actually separated so that you're not getting that thermal transfer, that cold air transfer through the metal. What that's gonna cause over time is a lot of condensation issues. And running condensation into your masonry is gonna cause the brick to wash out in effloresce. And you're gonna get that little bit on the sill where you start to see like rust corrode and things like that. And it's eventually gonna cause the system to degrade over time. And it will, of course, impact the lead points, the lead credits as well. One, because we won't be able to have operable windows with these ballistic rated windows. And two, its thermal performance is significantly less. So you'd end up spending more on energy costs and things like that. So I just went through all those. Also, if we do the doors and everything like that, they're significantly heavier, so more robust hardware and more maintenance over time.
Mr. Chair? Sure. Matt, can you go back one slide? I just want to compare. Maybe that's not, I think you went forward. You had them all listed, 1 through 6.
Yep.
Yeah, right there. Yeah, right there.
So this is a comparison of all the
Comparison
different.
of option 6 to option 3. Does 6 have the cost?
6 would be a
Be the
minimal
same.
change in cost.
But option 5 to option 3. It's,
Yep, so option 5 is raising the metal panel
yep,
and adding some ballistic ratings behind the metal panel
and not changing the frames.
and not changing the frames.
Okay.
To option 3 would be, so option 5B, $20,000 to $50,000, give or take, and then option 3 of just doing the lower glass, not the frames, 60 to about 150,000.
I know that the current frames are not rated, but Jeff or Matt, if you were to give your best guess, could it be rated?
It's,
Close,
so when we did, did we rate the frames in Dayton? No. So when we did, the last 2 stations we did that had ballistic rated glass in Massachusetts, Wilbraham and Dayton, one of which we showed you was the glass, not the frames. So we do it where it's just the glass and not the frame.
And not the frame.
It's simply not a tested system. So like Jeff was saying, the brick is intrinsically ballistic resistant, but it's not a tested system. Same thing. I can't sit here and swear on a Bible and say, if you shot at just the glass in a non-rated frame, that it would perform and not possibly fail. But it would be significantly better than, performance-wise, in that situation than not having rated glass, if that makes sense.
I guess my question is, on the frame, if we were just to do the glass and keep the frames we have, which I think look much nicer, if, in your expertise, what would you say it would be rated? I know it's not rated, but can you give that? I mean, I certainly think it would slow down a bullet.
No, absolutely. Any material, if a projectile is coming into it, it's gonna lose energy. Now, it might also fracture, so you might have smaller pieces going through. Would it get to a level 1? Maybe. What I think when I started doing police stations, in order to get these ballistic ratings that we talk about today, we were dealing with layers of glass that would come up to this thickness, and they would be so heavy, and you couldn't build them into exterior window systems, and they would distort the view, and you couldn't see through them. We live in a great time that we have so many new materials that are available to us that weigh a lot less, and it's hard to believe sometimes, but they actually cost a lot less than they used to. But I think putting your money where it's smart to do it is the approach that is most often taken. That's why we do provide ballistic ratings in the lobbies. There's a high probability of frustration and anger and people targeting in those areas, particularly when the dispatch center is there. And again, when you have roadways where you have the potential for drive-by random shots or even just random angry shots, I think it makes sense to put some ballistic rating on the glass to deal with those random incidents. If we're dealing with a concentrated, a determined assault, officers step out the door. They get into their cruisers too. So the risk is still there. So I think to go ahead and do some ballistic protection with the glazing is certainly enhancing the safety of your overall building, regardless of whether you go with the ballistic frame or not.
Understood.
Good.
No, that's good.
Oh, you have something?
Just so, Matt, just so I'm clear, option 3 is all the lower windows?
Correct.
Okay, and that's a range of 60 to 150?
Correct.
Yeah, I can clarify that, Matt. It's the lower windows in fitness.
I thought
Roll
you said
call,
Roll call.
clerks, training.
not across the front.
Wait, not dispatch.
Is that right?
Yeah, that would be across the front.
Yeah, clerks and training.
Not the door system, though.
Correct. Yeah, it would not be the vestibule.
But I thought you said that we already had something. Oh, when you're talking a lobby, you're talking interior lobby?
Yeah, once you enter.
Yeah, so it'd be roll call, fitness,
Point it.
here, here,
Yeah,
here, here, not here.
okay. I don't know, I don't recall what's on the other side facing Maple Ave.
All the other windows are up high.
Okay.
It even be in those 2 training rooms in the front?
Yes, yeah. The only areas of the building at that point that would have lower windows that wouldn't be rated would be the vestibule there where the entry doors are. Because there's 2 layers there and then one of the stair towers.
So, we're talking, I know it's early, but we could be talking $150,000 to do the first floor, basically. And we spent $285,000 to make the air a little more comfortable in the building. Like, to me, this is a no-brainer. I hear what you're saying about if you go to the ballistic frames, because I've seen what you're talking about, not with ballistic frames, but I've seen that deterioration. And I think, 95% of your shots are gonna probably be taken through the glass. It's probably gonna be an errant shot that goes through a frame. I don't know.
No, I agree, and I think even if it hits the frame, it's still gonna have some stopping power a little bit.
Donna?
If you do the whole front lower windows ballistic, that's one thing. I think the metal part looks like garage doors, and I think the brick part looks like garage doors. But my question is, if you went with the brick, is there a way to redesign the windows so they look better, so they don't look like they're the top part of a garage door? I mean, is that complicated?
I
Do they make
don't think,
windows?
I think it's more complicated than it may seem. Especially, I would honestly say that probably to make it work architecturally, you'd want to redesign the entire facade to do that. I don't think it'd be as easy as flipping a switch. It'll look like a mistake. It'll look like we made a last-minute decision.
Right.
So I think there may be some
mean-
sort of compromise to work out here. So I think what we're trying to do is balance, safety obviously is number one, aesthetics, number two, and cost, number three. So would there be an opportunity to, say, on the fitness room, to raise those, brick it? Save some costs there, and then go with the ballistic on the front of the window where you have the aesthetics? And what would that cost be? That may be a compromise that would fit into the budget and provide all the safety that we needed.
Mr. Chair, I got one question, Matt. So just to clarify, all the windows except the vestibule for the entrance, you'll be protected behind there, not the frames, but the window, 12 feet, all the way around. Roll call, clerk's office.
No, we're talking to 8 feet to this line.
Yeah, halfway up.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a mullion line here that we would utilize.
You got any 7-footers in the
But
department?
it's all around the first floor, basically, though.
Donna?
No, we used to.
So,
Yeah.
so if you say you're able to do this and it's a reasonable price, why wouldn't you do the door frame too?
That's a completely different thing. The weight of it and everything else, we'd have to start looking at adding some structural steel to it. It's a complete redesign.
But it doesn't impact officer safety?
Well, that area is gonna be more of a community area. I think it's less likely that there's a,
The other piece of it is you have an added layer of ballistic protection on the inside
That's what
wall
right.
of the lobby.
And they don't usually come out into
And
the lobby.
unless they're opening and closing the front door, I wouldn't presume that there's an officer stationed in the front lobby.
No.
Right?
Officer, if there was an officer station, he or she would be behind those bulletproof walls
Right.
Right,
in dispatch.
right.
So if I may, just to be crystal clear here, the locations on the front of the building that Matt just pointed out, and two other locations come into play, the roll call room and the fitness room, which both have those lower window conditions.
Okay.
The high windows on the side that punch into all the offices, those are already high, they would not be
Right.
treated
Right.
with the
Right.
ballistic, okay?
Yep,
In this that
Right.
option proposal.
okay.
So, and again, raising the fitness room, of the 150,000, would it save 15 to 20,000? I didn't do the math, but yes, somewhere in that range.
Okay.
The other question would be roll call as well, if we just raise those up.
roll call being on the front right.
Nope, that's all the way in the back of the building by the
All the way in the
officer's
back of the
entrance.
building. Yeah,
So
'cause
roll
those
call-
aren't
that's-
public view buildings.
That's roll call back there.
So those are already raised up, though?
Nope, right here, just these 4 windows,
Oh,
just
yeah.
this little guy.
chief?
Okay.
I would, if it was my building and my aesthetic, I would recommend, if we're raising the windows up, to do it with the metal panels and not the brick, personally.
Because,
Just architecturally, just the aesthetic of it. I think when you put the brick in, it starts to look pretty fortress-like.
What's the ballistic rating of that you were talking about that went behind the metal?
It would be the same as what you have in the front lobby.
If you want it. At that point, you don't see anything behind there,
Right.
so
So
it's up to you guys to
That's
decide.
not really a
Just
public
to-
side of the building, I'd be okay with that.
Just to clarify, what you're talking about is the difference between glass that's bullet resistant
Yeah,
and a Kevlar mat that gets mounted on the inside face of the sheetrock inside the building,
Okay.
right? So from the inside of the building, it looks like a sheetrock wall. From the outside of the building, it looks like a metal panel. And hidden
Right.
between those two layers is a Kevlar mat that takes the round.
And Matt, how much was it to replace all the windows on the first floor? Not the frames, just all the windows.
It was like 150,000.
high-end 100.
All the windows that are low
All
enough.
the
Low
low
enough.
ones.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the admin staff should be safe as well.
I agree.
You know, and also those front rooms where they're gonna be community rooms, I mean, if we have a community meeting going on, I think we should have those
Right.
safe as well.
But I think if you get away from the public side of the building, where people are gonna see it, where the fitness room is and the roll call room and back. I think we could save some money by going with the metal panels.
How much money would that save?
So it depends on what you want to do with it, right? So back here, we're talking, if I have that option. We're talking about doing that.
Yep.
Adding those metal panels in. You can't see into the building now, right? So do you still want them to be ballistic rated? Or is blocking the vision like that enough for you?
And a level 3 ballistic panel built into the wall is roughly a third the cost of the glazing, of the level 3 glazing.
Well, I
So
think,
for that square footage, I mean, I don't remember what that square footage is, but what is it, 20 feet by 3 feet, we're 60 feet times, $60 a square foot is what we'll spend on armor, so we'll, it's be $36,000, 36, somebody do that math. I'm putting a zero in there, I think.
While you're doing the math, can I see the fortress again, please? No, the back.
The back with the brick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't mind the back, brick in the back.
But
No, if it's-
it's more expensive than the panels.
It is?
Yeah.
Yes.
oh, really?
Is that more expensive than the panels?
That would be more, yeah, so I didn't have a price option for that, but that would be more expensive than
Than the-
just the panels by
Right,
themselves.
store look.
But what about the panels with the ballistic
Yeah,
backing?
now it's splitting hairs, it's gonna be fairly,
It'll be about the same as having that.
Well, less than the glass, though.
No,
Right.
it's less than the glass. So
less than the glass.
whether you go with this or the panel with the ballistic protection, which I think you need to have, what's the difference in price? That's my question.
I personally like the look of the panel
On
with
the
the
back?
ballistic back from the outside. I don't know how anybody else feels.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, that's fine, as long as it's ballistic panel. I thought that was less expensive, that's why I was also asking.
no, that would be less expensive than the ballistic glazing,
Okay.
yeah.
And would that require any kind of redesign of the facade or anything, or you just?
That?
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
That
So-
would,
Not with
not
the
the
panel.
panels, though.
Not the
Would it?
Not the
Right,
panels.
not the panels. The panels, we have to do a couple of quick details,
Yeah.
but this is like a whole new series of details we
And
have.
what about the glass in the front?
That's a change in the spec, that's easy. Changing the glass is like, we can do that overnight. Changing the glass in the frame, that's a whole new ballpark.
Yeah.
It's just a completely different system.
So do we have an idea how much it would be to do the panels in the fitness
With ballistic.
with ballistic?
Yep.
And all the windows on the
Right.
first floor?
So I think, from what I'm getting, what we want to explore is here and roll call, raising the metal panel up.
Yep.
Yep.
And rate it, ballistic rate it,
Right.
and then the glass in the other locations.
Yeah.
And then doing those two locations would be 12 feet.
No, 8 feet.
8 feet.
8 feet.
8 feet.
Okay.
And I
That's a
did run the math,
yeah.
this is crude. If we did the ballistic glass for just this fitness room window, that would be about 15,000 square feet. To do it with the ballistic panel inside, the ballistic panel is gonna cost about a third of that, so about 5,000 square feet. So you'd save $10,000 on this opening by going with the ballistic panel in the wall as opposed to ballistic glass.
Really? I thought it was gonna be a
I
lot
thought
more
it was
savings than
me
that.
too.
He said a third.
Yeah,
It's like, come on, guys.
work on percentages, yeah.
Mr. Chair, I just had one question.
Sure,
for
Joe.
Jeff. You talked about the different ratings, level 3, level 4. Can you just explain the difference? Is it the whole assembly, the glass itself? Or,
So with the actual UL listing, Underwriter Laboratory listing of the tested assemblies, not the component, they're each rated for a specific muzzle velocity and impact on the glass themselves. So a level 3, and then they're a specific number of shots. And as they go down, I think to level 4 or 5, they encompass all the levels before them. So level 4 would be rated for level 3 for 2, and so on. When you get to like 6, 7, and 8, they're like very specific for what they're rating against, as far as threats go. So a level 3 is rated for, I believe it's 3 shots from a 44 Magnum handgun, to the middle of it. And then a level 4 would be that, or, a single shot from a 30-06 hunting rifle.
So we're looking at a level 3 for what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, so the lobby, the inside of the building, the lobby is rated for a level 4, because that's what's required for the dispatch area for NFPA 1221.
so
But
I
we're doing
guess-
level 3 for the outside.
To the chief, is that gonna be adequate enough for are you comfortable with that level of protection from the outside?
I am. I think that if you're gonna take a shot at a police station, typically it's random. It's typically, someone's not aiming, they're shooting, you know, at a window, or they're shooting at the front of the station, so I would be.
And are you comfortable, chief, with that compromise of doing the panels around the back and doing the glass?
I personally like the glass, the full.
Even around the back?
Yeah, that's me,
So,
but I know it costs more.
Yeah.
I do like the design the way it is right now. I guess that one's not too bad, but
so,
a perfect world, if we could just make all first floor.
In a perfect world,
Yeah,
you guys
in a
would
perfect
shot
world,
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I know.
You wouldn't need
Let's-
it.
so now my head's scrambling. Is the glass more protection than the panel? No.
No.
Is it less protection than the panel?
We're proposing it at the same ballistic level, the glass to the panel.
At less
So it's
cost?
equal.
Yeah.
It's equal in protection, different in cost. Obviously, glass is, we're
And
trying to
we
get
would
something
save how much
transparent.
in the back by putting the panel?
Just that window, what did I say, $10,000? If we did that one in roll call, more like 20,000. Again, that's
That's
the
it.
low end of Matt's range.
Could be more, probably not less.
Right. I mean, I think, to me, since this isn't a public side of the building, if we can save $20,000 here, because we don't know what material costs are gonna be going forward, including structural steel. So I think where we have opportunities to save money and keep the aesthetics for the public view, that's something that we should be doing.
Is there a way to get a price on both those options? One being all the glass compared to all the glass except roll call in the training room? Doing it that way.
At this point, we would bid them as alternates. Since we're going out to bid soon, without having to delay that, so we would propose that we would bid that as an alternate.
And then we decide?
And then once we have the bids in hand, we can decide.
I thought we had an issue with, if there are other
Yeah.
alternates, where's that gonna be in the scheme of things?
Yeah, right now.
If it's
there are
not like number 1 or number 2.
Right now, there are no other alternates.
Well, there aren't yet.
Would that be an alternate for the sub-bid, or would it be alternate for that would be an alternate for a sub-bid, right?
Sub-bid.
So it would only be within the glazing package?
It would affect the middle window package.
Oh, it's not on the whole project?
Right,
Oh, it's by the trades?
a trade, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's worth at least putting it in as an alternate. You can,
It's a little different on this because it's CM, so it's not like the GC buys out all the alternates and then you have to go through them.
Is there a downside to putting it out that way?
I have to do a little more work.
So no, there
No.
isn't a downside.
So
What's consensus then? What did we
So-
just agree on?
Well, I think what we had just talked about was exploring the metal panels with ballistic rating in the fitness room, in the roll call room.
In the roll call.
And then doing the full glass, up to 8 feet on the front of the windows, on the front of the building,
Yep.
and leaving the door system alone.
Right,
And leaving the frames on the windows alone?
Right.
right.
Okay.
And
And
have
then
an
having,
alternate for the glazing in the back, for roll call
Right.
and fitness.
Right.
Right.
you okay with that?
Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Good. All right.
That's good.
Great minds.
We'll see.
Just so we're clear, the only alternate is gonna be the metal or the glass and those two back things. We're going ahead now with the ballistic glass and all the other locations, right? That's not an alternate.
We are designing it for the ballistic glass at the locations at the front of the building that we
Right.
discussed, and this design for the back of the house things, and we're doing an alternate to add, to swap those
Right.
metal panel pieces with the glass.
Just so we all understand what we're doing.
And finally, Matt, what does that do to the lead certification that we're seeking? Anything? Does it keep everything operable, or,
Let me look into it.
okay,
I have, if we're doing it minimal like this, I think I can make it work with this, not affect
Well,
it.
we can claim the upper sash.
That would be good.
Yeah, yeah.
if it's a little more work for you, I'm okay with
Just
that.
just from a practical standpoint, though, the operable sashes
Yep.
in the exercise room are gonna require somebody to get on a ladder to operate them. Just so we're clear. I mean, the operable sash should be 8 feet above the
Or
floor,
you would have a pole.
You can have a
on that.
pole.
or something.
Yep.
Yep,
Right, but not,
right,
yeah.
okay.
But in theory, it's gonna be very well air-conditioned, so we probably won't be opening those windows.
Right.
The operable windows is simply for an
Leads.
air quality lead
Fresh
point.
air,
Yeah.
right.
It's good workout, too, if you're using the pole to twist it.
They could also just get on one another's shoulders. They
All
don't have
right.
to get on a ladder.
I have high windows in my house. I'm good at standing on the lower
There you
sill.
go.
That would be the story of the century, right? Officer gets injured opening the really high window. Couldn't reach the ones that were placed below.
That Matt
them
Sala
safe.
designed.
All right.
I have other stuff to talk.
Yep,
Yeah.
I just want to touch briefly on site design. We're still working through this. So we already looked at this. This was the preferred option for the Sacred Acre in the front. So we're continuing to work through that. And we're also continuing to work through options for the softball field and second egress off the site. We did bring the planning board up to speed that we're looking into this and that we would probably be pursuing a de minimis change with this should we go forward. We're also trying to keep it out of the wetlands buffer zone too, to keep this out of Concom so that we don't have to go back. But we would be looking at probably doing some version of this second exit drive out of here that would be used for emergencies only. And we'd be looking at doing like a turf pave system or something like that so that it's not really there, but it's there if you need it. We're just working out the logistics and locations for these two soccer fields and how the softball field works out. I thought I was gonna have an updated plan with some options today, but it did not come in time. So more to come on this, but this is something we're gonna be continuing to work through. Oh, that's all I had. So let's look at some finishes. That's all I had for slides. So, Brianna's here. So we can look at the interior finish boards that were dropped off a little while ago, and then we do have some updates and other samples. And then these are some of the exterior finishes. So this is what we're looking at for the brick. This is our precast concrete finish. Our metal roofing is gonna be this color here. And then all the other metal trim is on the outside of the building is gonna be this, which is bone white. This is just a sample of what the roofing looks like. So it's not like your standing seam roof that you see on a lot of commercial buildings. It's a standing seam shingle. So in a regular standing seam roof, this would go the whole length of the roof all the way up and down. These are this big and they come in tiles and they all interlock. They all interlock together into this, so that it has more of a slate shingle kind of look to it. It's a really attractive system. This isn't exactly the curtain wall material that we're using, but this was just to sort of give you a sense of how these components come together, to show the difference between this and the ballistic frames. And then this is what the glass will look like. This is actually Solar Band 90 with Acuity, they call it, so it's got an extra low E. They used to call this firelight glass. This is a new version of it, and it has better visibility through to the outside, so that you'll have better view of your surroundings at night and things like that.
Okay.
Better eyes on the street thing, so it's a security thing. That's all. I'm gonna let you in. we've gone through all this, so really, I think this can just be an open discussion and conversation about finishes. There's been lots of discussions behind the scenes, and I think we can all come together. I think the main thing to point out, though, is we're talking product quality and where it's going. The colors, we can always adjust as the finished trades come in to the project.
Yeah, and then just going off of colors, I know there were some concerns about some of the black flooring finishes.
That was me.
Coming in directly from the exterior, which completely valid, so I did bring some other, that same product, which is a walk-off carpet tile. I just wanted to show you that there are plenty of color options available, which I actually have a meeting with the chief from the department on Thursday to go over the exact colors, so we'll touch on that then, but you can see there's a broad range from grays to browns to the solid blacks and everything, so we'll take a look at a more neutral color that will hide some of that.
Based on your experience, does that black show more of the
So the
traffic?
black-
Because the product itself looks great.
Yeah.
It's just, I worry about
Sure,
what it
yeah.
looks like by
So there's
noontime.
there's a compromise with one end of the spectrum or the other. With the black in the winter, you're gonna see the salt. But in the rest of the year, when it's mud and stuff like that, it blends in easily with the
Yeah.
black. Whereas the lighter colors, like some of the tones that go more with like the terrazzo and the lobby and stuff like that, you're gonna see the mud majority of the year, but then you won't necessarily see the salt during the winter. So it's, yeah.
Is there one that kind of is,
That's why I tend to stick with the black that has the white intertwined into the threads.
and that tricks the eye?
Yeah, because then once it's laid down, you do see some white speckling throughout the walk-off carpet.
Unless you
there.
would want pink, chief.
No, I like the black.
Yeah, we can certainly go orange. Yeah, so that's why I
Yeah.
tend to go with the mixed one because
But
it
so
does
that
have-
makes up the,
Yeah.
okay. Because
yeah.
that was my only concern about that, because clearly it looks like a good product.
Sure, yeah, okay, great. And then I think the other one was the rubber stair treads and risers, because in one of the stair towers, there is an exterior door that leads directly into that. So I took a look at, it's the same product line, but it's a different color. So you'll notice instead of the hammered finish, it's a different, it's like more of like, it's still called hammered, but it doesn't have the rounded extrusion sticking up through
And
it.
those rounded things are better for slipping?
Yeah, so that's the idea. This one, unfortunately, is a very basic color line, so it's either black or gray, essentially, with this one. Whereas this one gets a little more, it has a little more to it, but it doesn't have that rounded.
Slip protection.
Yeah, which is still a very slip-resistant product. It's just, this is just added precaution in there. So you'll notice these are still both black, but this one has some gray flecks to it, whereas this one has like
How
some-
light is the gray with the round circles?
It's pretty light. It's more like the color tone of the epoxy.
Oh, so
gray.
that wouldn't do it either, so
Yeah.
I'd leave it alone.
So those are a few things that I just wanted to touch on. And then also the general paint
Okay.
color.
Yeah, I'm good
which
with them.
is the general paint color, which is PT2 up at the top here. We're gonna meet Thursday to discuss that one too.
What's that one?
This is the general paint color that was
Oh.
throughout the whole building, and it's a light paint color, so we're taking a look at a few darker options to run throughout as the general.
Mr. Chair.
Sure, chief.
I've got a question for Keith. Keith, what have you used on that map?
Stair treads?
Yeah.
So the back hall of going to the second floor of DPW is the hammered surface. It is the gray. And then Coolidge School and a couple other schools actually have the dimpled one in some of their stairs and all in gray.
Do you notice a difference with the grip?
No,
So it's, okay.
no. I think quite honestly, if they're wet, I think either one of them you could still slip.
Really?
Yep.
So the good thing with the tread, at least the front of the tread has this visually impaired strip on it, which it has a variety of colors. These were just the two that I thought went well with the, but it has a grip to it. So at least you can feel that too. At least the very tip of the tread will have some sort of slip resistance to it. But the tile that's down on the landings and down at the entry point will just be the regular rubber.
Does this come off?
It doesn't,
over
it's
time?
actually
No?
embedded into the front of the, which is, you can't really see it on here, but it's embedded to the front of the nosing.
And we have that in most of our schools have that in some form or the other. Even some of our terrazzo stairs have a piece in the front.
It helps with because obviously the black is a dark color, so when you're black next to black, it's a little hard to see step to step, so that helps with that, and it also helps with the grip at the front there. Were there any other concerns?
Well,
Any of the other
Keith,
questions?
you didn't have a problem with the black tread, though?
No.
'Cause
No,
I asked him
it's-
about it.
Well, the color doesn't matter for us. I think I mentioned one time, like you were concerned about dust and dirt and seeing that. Well, there's two sides to that. One, you see it, but then the other side is, well, we do see it, so I know if it's getting cleaned or not. So that's kind of, it's kind of a two-way
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
for me. So, I mean,
That's why I thought the fleck might be a good compromise with that too,
yeah.
because
Yep.
if there is some sort of particulate that lands on the ground, at least it's blending in with the
Right.
flecks
Yep.
instead of sticking out.
And you got the same issue with salt and things like that.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I do like that version of it,
The
Yeah, I
the
like
mixed
that.
one?
the mixed one,
Yeah.
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 That's your choice.
And everything
still give
else,
an opinion.
the other black flooring was the terrazzo, but that's used as just an accent throughout the lobby. It's not, an expansive surface anywhere. And then the general carpet tile too, which is used within all the office spaces. So by the time they're getting into those office spaces, majority of the mud and salt is gonna be off their shoes by then anyway, so.
I had a couple
Donna,
more.
yeah.
I had a question on the white cabinet.
Sure.
And Keith assures me that they're gonna be cleaned anyhow, but have you had any history of putting up white cabinets and seeing them?
So I actually, it's funny you asked that. I just did a healthcare clinic that had white cabinets and white solid surface countertops. And they were concerned with, they had this like red, almost like fruit punch solution that they used a lot. So they were concerned with it staining the laminate and the countertop. So we actually did a 12-hour, 24-hour, and a 48-hour test with that red juice substance on those two surfaces. And both of them wiped off with no issues on the solid surface and the laminate.
You
So it
probably-
does have,
Probably should have used 3 or 4 hours with like a 3, 4, and 5-year-old and see what happens.
So it also seemed thin
yeah.
along with the wooden wall. Is that just because it's a sample?
Yep, so the laminate itself, which is this guy here, is a very thin product, but it gets mounted onto a 3/4 MDF panel, which is behind it, so it gives a little more rigidity. And same with the wood panel, that's just like a wood chip sample that comes in a color palette. But in reality, that's gonna be anywhere from a 1/2 inch to a 3/4 inch thick product that.
Donna, the product, this green product, this is a laminate
That
product,
is
right? Right
laminate,
here.
yep.
So it's not glued to the subsurface.
And I talked to Keith and he assured me that it was gonna be clean, so. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions?
No,
Okay.
thanks, Fiona. All right, very good. Anything else, Matt?
Give me long enough to think about it, I'll come up with something else, but I think I'm good for today.
Okay. And now we have a report from the construction manager, Ryan.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pitney. Committee members, it's nice to meet everybody in person. I think this is the first time as a group, so just to introduce myself, I'm Ryan DePasquale. I'm the project manager from Fontaine's. I was asked just to give a little bit of a bidding project schedule update. So right now, we, as mentioned previously, we have the 90% documents, which are in the process of the complete construction estimate, as well as the early site, or the early steel and concrete packages. Previously, we had the 60% documents, and that was what we used to bid the site package off of. We received site bids last week. I'm in the process of reviewing those bids with my director of pre-construction. It all looks very good. We had a lot of input from subcontractors. So in the next week or two, we'll be presenting that to the group to get a recommendation to award. And as we go through the 90% construction estimate, we'll do the same process with the concrete and steel. We'll get multiple bidders. We've had good interest thus far on this project, so we expect that to stay the same. As previously mentioned, we're going to have the reconciliation for the 90% construction estimate on the 12th of July. So with that, we'll make a recommendation to award the steel and concrete shortly thereafter. And following up on that, as was mentioned as well, we're going to have the 100% construction documents out hopefully the 21st if everything goes well with the 90% construction estimate. And with that, we'll have our filed and non-filed sub bids for the rest of the trades within this project. We expect to have a complete contract package by September, and September, October, depending on when the building committee meetings fall, we will have our GMP ready to present to the group. So that's just kind of a general overview of where we're at. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So our cost should be pretty much locked in by July 21st, is that what you're saying?
Well, we'll have to do our due diligence to make sure everybody is inclusive of all the material.
Yep.
Obviously, the filed sub bidders, if they're low and responsive, then we'll tend to proceed with those, but the non-filed bidders will pick parts of their packages to group together. Sometimes you add additional packages to the drywall, or we have more options with how we package those.
Okay.
But by September or October, depending on the speed of the buyout process, we'll have our GMP together.
Okay,
And all the contracts in
All right,
place
very good.
shortly thereafter.
that'll be somewhat of a relief.
Yeah, definitely.
Any questions?
You have a question?
Sure, Mel.
So in the schedule, roughly, steel would start going up when?
So right now, that's one other thing I can touch on. We're expecting to start site clearing the end of July, so approximately a month to 5 weeks out. With that, we'll have concrete starting the beginning to middle of September, and then from there, we're gonna have our structural steel starting the middle to end of December. So right now, that's kind of in line with what we're seeing for required lead times for detailing, shop drawing, review and approval, and then fabrication and delivery. So it's about 4 months, beginning of December, the month of December is when we'll be erecting steel.
If we're not gonna take delivery of steel until December, sake of argument, if you order it whenever, you sign the contract or with the contractor, whoever's gonna buy the steel, whether you or the sub, whoever. When they do that, if the price goes up between the time the contract's signed and the time of delivery, is there any exposure there?
No. Once we provide a signed contract, they cannot come after us for escalation. So once they have a signed contract, they'll send POs to their material suppliers, and they'll be locked in at that price, so.
The reason I asked is a friend who's got a relatively small building compared to this, but caught in having to hold back and taking delivery, and the prices went up, and they found something in the fine print of the contract that he had to pay what the increase was in that time frame. I just was wondering how it worked.
Yeah.
Chapter 149 does not allow for material
Can't do
escalation.
that?
It's a
Okay.
statutory requirement.
Okay,
State does not put itself at risk that way.
other ways, but not that way.
Good to
Can't
hear.
speak to everything, Mo.
No, thank you.
Anything else for Ryan? No. Thanks, Ryan.
You're welcome.
All right, which brings us to item 4, other business. Do we have anything? Nobody. All right. Next meeting. What are we looking at?
We have July 12th.
July 12th is on the books
Do we
already.
still need that? Do we need an extra meeting?
I don't, so that meeting is to present the bid documents and ask for a recommendation to get a bid. The only thing in between now and then would be whether or not Fontaine would need approval to enter in the contract with any of their other bidders.
Yeah, so we would be looking to have a review approved to enter into a contract with the site subcontractor. It's kind of tough with the week of the 4th of July. I don't know, if it's like the 7th, Wednesday the 7th would be a possibility.
Bet you might need a meeting?
That Yeah, if that would be possible. for
July
everybody.
7.
Mr. Pitney?
Yes,
So
sir.
that would mean the 12th, we wouldn't have a meeting, or would we?
No, we would.
I'm not available on the 12th. I don't
Okay,
think.
not
Makes any
available on the
difference.
12th.
I'm not available on the 7th. But I'm not necessary at all meetings.
Yeah, really any time that we would.
But we would still, everybody else
I'm okay.
would be available?
That's just for the approval of the site contract.
Yeah. All right, so Kristen, Kristen, Alex, why don't we put in for July 7th? And we already have the one for July 12th. Very good. Anything else, anybody? Motion to adjourn, or you want to hang out?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Good
you.
work tonight.
Now we have to drive home.
What?